Man, how nice is it that in arguably the biggest game of the season up to this point, Auburn's key guys delivered.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. As we are every Monday, we are joined by the Lindsay Crosby. You can find his stuff over at thebarnauburn.com and elsewhere, of course. But Lindsay, when you look at it, we're going to talk about Iron Bowl week. It's finally here, and there's more at stake than I think we realized that there would be a month ago. There are some names that have stood out this past weekend, or specifically against Texas A&M, that maybe are flying under the radar and how great everything's going. But it's just so nice to reflect on a game now days after the fact. And when you think about the upperclassmen or the key contributors, they didn't fold. Like, there was just consistency throughout, and you didn't really look at anybody saying, like, man, if they just did a little bit more, this would happen. The way they won this game, I think, sent a statement. And the fact that it's like, okay, it's going to give Auburn some positive momentum going into the offseason, I think this is really, really going to mean something.
Yeah, to finally finish the drill, right? Like this has been the story all year of this Auburn team and I've said it myself, just for some reason couldn't do the little things to win a game. And yes, they had a lead that they ended up giving back and had to rally to tie the game and force overtime, but they did it. They rallied to force overtime despite some dumb offensive penalties in the final drive. And then to do some of the little things in overtime, to have your kicker make multiple kicks, to convert the 2-point play, to do enough to disrupt A&M to not do it. Like, it's all of the little things that I've criticized on every single Monday that Auburn couldn't do right. And you didn't fix all of them. Right. Again, you had 3 false start penalties at home in like one drive, but Auburn did enough of the little things to win. And it's what we've been missing all year. And like you said, it really gives good vibes and a good feeling that things maybe are starting to turn around. And this is going to get back to the Auburn squad that we're used to seeing historically at this university.
Yeah, no, the vibes are immaculate. There's no question. There's no question about it. Yeah, I just think when you look at what Keandre Lambert-Smith did against Texas A&M on Saturday, I mean, I think he's kind of putting an wow. Really emphasizing a strong end to the season. And I mean, I hate he's only going to be here a year, but he's been here in such a short amount of time, and he's going to have a top 10. I think I'd be conservative when I say that. A top 10 receiving season all time for Auburn when you talk about impact, when you talk about total yards, when you talk about touchdowns, when you talk about just overall impact of the offense. And like maybe the most impressive play of the game was his catch on the 2-point conversion that would eventually, be the game winner. And it's like, that doesn't really show up in a stat sheet. It's a 2-point conversion. And like, that's not a touchdown catch, but like, that's the stuff that doesn't really show up. But KLS's impact, it has been nothing short of tremendous. And what he's done at Auburn in such a short amount of time. We're going to remember it for a long time. Super, super cool stuff.
Yeah. And some of the great quotes we saw from him after the game, talking about like he's done everything that he can to try to, in his words, teach the freshman receivers the things that he didn't know when he was in their shoes.
Yeah.
And you saw some of that veteran, I'm going to call it guile, like on that 2-point conversion, how he took that subtle jab step to the right before he then broke left just to get just enough separation to go up and get that ball. Or the jump ball down the sidelines, how he made the adjustment. I think it was down the right sideline, made the adjustment when the ball was in the air to come back and get it. And the Auburn's receiver room obviously has been much better this year with his addition, but going forward, all of the little things he's been teaching your Cam Coleman, your Malcolm Simmons, all of your young receivers, those are all things that are going to pay off the next couple seasons. And he might go down in the post Cam Newton era, he might go down as one of the better transfer acquisitions in Auburn football history outside of Cam Newton and guys like, you want a Heisman, you can't put him in there, but outside of Cam, one of the better acquisitions out of the transfer portal in Auburn history.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a good one. I'm not quite ready to say that seems like a lot to put him like, is he a top 5 transfer in Auburn history? I don't know. I got to really sit down and think about that. But with the run that Auburn has had with transfer receivers, I mean, it's been bad.
Yeah, it's not been good.
He's kind of like the shining light in all of this. Then another transfer, like Robert Lewis. Robert Lewis had a catch for 17 yards. But like of all of these like transfer receivers that we've talked about over the last 2 years, like last year, none of them really did anything. Caleb Burton came on late, but Caleb Burton's not even really playing now. So just the overall impact that he's had. And this happened a few years ago when Sonny D was done, when Auburn baseball made it to the College World Series and that season was over. You and I had the discussion of like, where does he rank among like Auburn guys that were here just for a season, right? And I think KLS is going to be in that discussion, at least in the top 10, I would think, of guys that were here for 1 year and the impact that they made. It's just, I hate that the offensive identity wasn't clearer during his time here, because I almost feel like to some extent it was wasted, all of the production. But what he did last night, he and Cam Coleman together, and Darryl reminded me of this. Of course, I remember Cam Coleman, flipping from Texas A&M to Auburn, but I had forgotten until Darryl reminded me yesterday that KLS picked Auburn over Texas A&M. He was kind of the, A&M was the runner-up, and there were reports that he turned down more money that A&M was offering him to come to Auburn, which is super cool. But it's cool to see that tandem, because what they did on Saturday, they looked like a top receiver tandem in the SEC. And they kind of did a similar thing last week against ULM, but for them to do it against a Texas A&M defense that's been pretty solid at times throughout the season, it almost makes it more legitimate. It almost makes it more legitimate to say, okay, they can do this potentially against Alabama this upcoming week. And then can Cam Coleman continue to carry that torch and that momentum into next year? I mean, I think the answer to that is clearly yes.
Yeah, clearly Cam can. The question is, which receiver steps up to form the other half of that tandem? Is it Malcolm Simmons? Is it Perry Thompson or something? Do they bring in a transfer, like a veteran transfer, to try to reinforce the room a little bit, especially if you see in the age of the transfer portal where guys leave, right? If they were to lose anybody. But I think I'm both happy and sad about it. Okay. Like, I'm happy that we've seen Cam Coleman and KLS have the success in 2 consecutive weeks. And now you can't say, oh, they only did that because it was ULM.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What's the sad angle? I'm interested.
It feels like we're now finally at the very end of the season kind of seeing what the offensive potential of this roster and this offense, when things are working, actually is. And it's hard not to think about, what if you had this offense against Cal? What if you had this offense against Oklahoma? And just think about how the season could be different if you had Cam and KLS playing like this, Thorne being as clean for the most part like he was. How would it be different?
The issue, though, is like Auburn moved the ball fine in those games. They just didn't finish. It wasn't complete, right? Yeah. And now we've got a few weeks here now of it looking complete.
They're finishing the drill. They're adding the little things at the end that turn a turnover on downs or a chip shot field goal or a missed field goal into a touchdown. And it's just, they weren't doing these things early in the season. They were moving the ball, but they couldn't do things inside the 20 like they could do things between the 20s. And now they're getting that last bit has been added to the offense, and makes you feel good about the Iron Bowl next week. It also kind of makes you wonder what the season would have looked like if they came out like this in week 2, because week 1 looked like this, but in week 2.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the whole argument that most Auburn fans will want to hear is, Hugh Freeze has said this is going to be a work in progress, and he's trying to establish culture
and proof of concept.
At least there's signs of improvement. I mean, I think we all have the right to ask the question, like, why is it taking so long? And you can point to, scheme, you can point to quarterback decisions and all of that. It's still all under his umbrella. He's the head coach. He's over the offense. But at least it is trending in the right direction. Peyton Thorne's the 5th ranked passer when it comes to passing yards in the SEC, and he missed New Mexico. And so if he would have played that, he would be ahead of Taylon Green. He'd be 4th. And then when you look at like touchdowns, he's 5th. And once again, if you take out New Mexico, or if you add New Mexico, he's only 3 behind the next spot, which is Quinn Ewers, who's tied for 2nd. He probably gets 3 touchdowns against New Mexico. I don't think that's crazy to say with the game plan that they ran.
Yeah.
And now with like the interceptions, he's kind of chilled out when it comes to interceptions. And so you look at it, it's like Jalen Milroe has more picks than him. Taylon Green has more picks. Garrett Nussmeier has more picks. Carson Beck has more picks. And all of a sudden, it's like he's been fine. We all know the story with Jarquez Hunter, significantly less touches than Dylan Sampson. And he's still the number 2 rusher in the SEC by a long shot. And then KLS, number 3 in the conference in receiving yards and tied for the league lead in touchdowns. It's just, if you would have told me all of that going into the year, I'm like, we've got like 2 losses heading into the Iron Bowl. It just stinks how it's played out. But at least we saw a glimpse of what it can look like this past weekend. And clearly the folks who are most important when it comes to like believing in like, can what happened Saturday become normal, are the recruits. And they seemed more excited about the win than anybody, which is exactly what you want to see.
Yeah. I mean, you had a huge list of visitors, both your own commits and other schools' commits.
Yeah.
And they got to see one of the better games this season, I would say. Obviously, we're biased a little bit, but one of the better games in college football this year, a 4 overtime victory.
Insane.
And
yeah.
I had somebody send me a DM this morning or on Sunday morning, and he said, I think if Auburn wins the Iron Bowl, they could have a top 3 recruiting class. I think they could have a top 3 recruiting class even if they don't win the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, I don't know if winning the Iron Bowl. I'm trying to think like who's a target that winning the Iron Bowl impacts that. Like maybe offered.
My thought process here is the class has looked really good. You've been able to keep it together despite the record this season. This game obviously helps. Being very competitive in the Iron Bowl, I think, is all you really have to do to keep that class together. And I think it could naturally, based on just the proclivity Hugh Freeze has of getting flips late in the year, it could improve to a top 3 class or even, number 2 or whatever.
Yeah,
on its own.
Once again, I'm just trying to think like who. Like I think Usman Chroma. If I had to guess, like where Usman Chroma ends up, I'm saying it's Auburn right now. If I had to guess,
yeah.
Naeem Offord, I'm kind of 50-50 on. Auburn feels good about Offord, which is all you can really ask for. And I don't know if, like, I guess like instead of 50-50, maybe I'm like 60-40. On him if they win the Iron Bowl. And the other one's Justice Terry. I'm not as sold on Auburn's like realistic shots on Justice Terry as some other people are, but I said the same thing about Offord, a few months ago, and now it seems like Auburn does have a legitimate shot. So, I mean, hopefully I'm wrong, but like, so maybe Justice Terry if Auburn wins the Iron Bowl, but I think Auburn's got a shot for a top 3 class regardless. Anyway, I agree with you. It doesn't hurt Auburn, obviously, on the recruiting front if they beat Alabama, but I don't think winning the Iron Bowl should be like a qualifier for saying where Auburn's going to finish in recruiting, just because they have so much of their class already locked up. It's a great situation to be in. So,
yeah.
Real quick, you got anything else?
Yep. I went to look at Alabama's class to see like who's an in-state kid that winning the Iron Bowl would matter. They only have 2 in-state recruits committed right now. So
yeah, no, they've really planted their flag on the whole, like, we don't need in-state guys. And I think that's helped Auburn actually.
I don't think heavy on California and stuff.
Yeah. I don't think that had the effect that they thought it would. So, all right, let's, I mean, there are other guys that stood out. In fact, like maybe the best defender in the game, at least from the TV broadcast point of view. I don't think I've said his name once, and we've done like 3 shows on this game already. So let's jump into that. Give him his flowers in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. The line for the Iron Bowl is out. Auburn is an 11.5-point underdog. And I said it yesterday, Lindsay. I'm going to say it again today. I think that's too many points. I would have guessed, I would have gone a hair over a touchdown. I would have done like 7.5 or 8.5. I think this is a single-digit spread.
Yeah.
11.5, give me Auburn in the points.
Yeah, I mean, I had this in the squarely in the Vegas zone where it's within one touchdown, 6.5, something like that. Yep. 11 feels like it's way too many, especially based on how that team played last weekend and how our team played last weekend. And so, yeah, I am going to FanDuel and hammering Auburn. What's the URL to do that, though? What should I know about this, Zach?
It's just FanDuel.com. Nice. Short and sweet, to the point. FanDuel.com. Get this, Lindsay. New customers, if you haven't done this yet, you can bet $5 and win $150 in bonus bets.
Not a mathematician. That's a lot of money for not very much money.
It's a very high percentage return on investment for sure.
Yes.
Also, Auburn basketball line against Iowa State tonight opened at 1.5 points.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is 3.5 points, and I checked it like 2 hours ago. So the money likes Auburn, and so be sure to get into the action on that tonight. FanDuel.com. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Alumni Hall. Alumni Hall is the best place to buy all of the Auburn swag. Where do you think I bought this quarter zip from?
That hat, that Frank Thomas style hat.
Bang. Yes, I got them both at Alumni Hall.
I am very non-alumni hauled right now, and I'm sad about it. But the good thing is I've got multiple ways that I can get my Alumni Hall fix if I don't have one like right now.
Yeah, well, you do have a lot of Alumni Hall stuff in your closet.
I do.
At home.
It's a lot.
So you could go get it if you really needed to. But if you're not at home, if you're listening or watching, they've got 3 great physical locations in Auburn, Opelika, and Huntsville, and also online at alumnihall.com. Got a tweet over the weekend. They said they went into one of the physical stores and dropped the Locked On Auburn mention, and they got a discount.
Whoa.
I actually didn't know that was part of the partnership, being 100% honest with you. Or I would have been telling y'all, I would have been doing that.
No promises at work. But hey, $5 at FanDuel, you get $150 back. You can use some of that money you win. Go to Alumni Hall with it.
Yeah, there you go. alumnihall.com. So somehow this is our third show talking about Auburn's dramatic win, the 43-41 win over Texas A&M. Keyron Crawford is a dude I was super critical of his play over the first month of the season. And Auburn played all these mobile quarterbacks, and he was giving up containment like it was crazy. It was crazy. And then over the course of the season, he'd get better and better. And Auburn played less athletic quarterbacks. And then, Hugh Freeze's presser last week, he was asked that several times about playing a dynamic athlete at quarterback and all that stuff. And he's like, yeah, we did earlier on and we weren't good at it. Just being honest, a lot of that had to do with containment, and Keyron Crawford was not good at containment. But you look at what that dude did Saturday night. He is 100% acclimated to playing in the SEC now. There were always questions when you get a guy that's coming from the G5, like how long does it take? It took J-Mac a little bit to come from App State to Auburn. Now, obviously, by the end of the year, Keyron Crawford is ready. Next year, he is ready to be that key guy on the edge opposite of Keldrick Falk. And then he's going to have some of these younger guys behind him. But goodness gracious, he was awesome. He was awesome Saturday, Lindsay.
Talking about that duo, Keyron Crawford and Keldrick Falk combined for 9 pressures, 9 quarterback hurries in this game. Crawford had 4 of, here we go. Falk had 5 hurries on 36 pass rushing snaps. Keyron Crawford had 4 on 15 pass rushing snaps. Incredibly efficient with getting after the quarterback. And that is legitimately what he's here for.
Yeah, PFF pulled up. How many snaps on defense did he play?
31. It felt like a lot more.
How many times did he drop back in coverage?
6.
Okay. That's 6 too many. I'm just going to be 100% real. I don't love that. I just don't like it. It's just
proof for your point. 4 targets when he was in coverage, 4 receptions, 41 yards. His job is not covering receivers.
And we did that a lot earlier in the year too. So I don't know. I don't fully get that. And I think DJ Durkin's a really good defensive coach. That I just don't get it. It just never seems to work, but whatever. I'm with you. It did feel like he played more than that, which is exactly what you want in a guy who plays close to the line of scrimmage and that's pursuing a quarterback that's very mobile and athletic. Keyron Crawford was exceptional. He was absolutely exceptional to the point where the TV broadcast, they were talking about like he could go to the NFL, and it's like, please don't. Please don't. We need you one more year.
Don't tell him that. Don't tell him that.
Yeah, and I think he will stay another year. But just the fact that he has developed and come on so much since those first few weeks of the season. I mean, he looks like a different player, Lindsay.
Yeah, I feel like he is now, and to your point, he's more comfortable with the type of athlete he's going up against. It really felt like he was used to coming from a lower level competition. I can blow past this dude. If we make contact, I can just bull rush this guy and be done. And that's not really a fact. When you get to the SEC, it's a lot harder to do that on a consistent basis. And he's figured out from some of these veterans, he's learned the different moves he needs to make, how to set guys up and then let that pay off a little bit later in the game.
Yep.
And just all the little things, right? I keep going back to this, the little things, the nuances of playing the position at this level, he started to do, and you're now seeing the production and the results from it.
Yeah. I pulled up PFF too, and Keyron's the worst ranked defender, but his pass rush is the best.
Second best.
Second best.
Behind Eugene Asante. Yeah.
Yeah. They really knock you down when you give up
completions.
Yeah, which if you're 4 for 4, like that's not good. That's not good. But as far as rushing the passer, like that is what Keyron needs to be doing.
3 of his 4 highest rated pass rushing games have been in the last 4. Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, all of them were in the 70s. 79, 73, 78, right there. Boom.
Love that. That's exactly what we need. It's exactly what you need from your second best edge guy. And that puts you in a spot for him to take another step next year. Yep. I love that.
Him and Celtic Falk together, that's scary. For other teams, not for us.
No, it's very comforting for us, for sure. One more guy I want to give some love to, and I haven't really talked about him yet, but Caleb Harris. And I guess it's just almost like the assumption that he's going to be great. And we're almost like taking it for granted at this point. It's like, okay, you've been nothing short but fantastic in every game that you've been in so far this year. And he just continues to be dynamic and like not extremely flashy, but just steady as can be, and does exactly, you could tell he does exactly what his coaching staff asked him to do every single rep. And when you've got a defensive coaching staff or a defensive, coordinator like Durkin, that's exactly what you need. That's exactly what you need. It's a bunch of Caleb Harrises out there.
Targeted 4 times, 2 catches for 19 yards, allowed a grand total of 2 yards after the catch. So the dude went down almost immediately. Also, highest graded rush defender on the team, Caleb Harris, in this game.
He will highest graded you. Yep. I love that.
Yep.
It's Iron Bowl week. And if you would have said this to me a month ago, I would have scoffed at you. But the Tigers got a chance. And we thought this past weekend was big. Oh, that's next. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, whether it's for football, basketball, baseball, whatever it may be. Look, you may be in a spot where you're like, I don't want to go to the Iron Bowl. And then you saw what happened this past week and you're like, we got a shot. We got a shot. Just take a gander. If you've thought about it, if you're 50-50 on go, just take a gander. Over to Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. You're gonna find the best prices at Bryant-Denny Stadium on the Game Time app, Lindsay.
They're going to tell you exactly what it costs to get in. No bunch of fees and hidden stuff. And they're going to show you which of you, what the view looks like from your seat. Are you in the sun? Because it's a noon game. Are you in the sun? Are you what are you dealing with? Boom. All taken care of. You got it right there in the Game Time app.
Yep. So download the Game Time app today. Once again, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Lindsay, what time is it?
It's game time.
Yes. Final few moments on today's edition of Locked On Auburn. What's that?
Quick correction. It's 2:30 p.m., not noon. That's on me.
Okay, I wasn't positive, but I'm like, there's no way.
And I just checked. It's 2:30.
You're good. You're so good. Thank you for correcting that.
Yep.
I said Auburn hadn't won a 4 overtime game recently, and I forgot that the 2021 Iron Bowl existed. I just plucked that from my brain.
Yep.
Which I don't think it's the worst tactic to do, by the way.
Yeah, that was there's a reason to dwell on that one. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah. When you look at this Iron Bowl, I mean, obviously Auburn has bowl eligibility to play for, which I think fans care about, and I'm sure some players care about it. I'm sure the coaching staff cares about it, but I don't think that's what this team needs from a motivation standpoint. I think this is a team that feels like they have really fallen off. And I think there's more personal pride on the Auburn side of this, because you could say the same thing for Alabama. Like, I'm sure the folks in the Alabama locker room have said, yes, we should have done better. We should have had a better season. You shouldn't have 3 losses up to that point with all the talent that's on that roster. But I just think you're seeing more personal pride at this point of the season on the Auburn side of things than you are the Alabama side of things, because you just got smoked by Oklahoma. And to me, I think that's going to show up on Saturday. I think that's going to matter, Lindsay.
I would also argue Auburn hasn't necessarily given up in any of their games. And I full disclosure, I didn't watch the end of that Alabama game, but you can't tell me that team can't score more than 3 points.
Yeah.
It's been 20 years since they were held to 3 points in a game or something like that.
No, I mean, Milroe, this is a guy who was expected to be a Heisman finalist for a good chunk of the season. You've got Ryan Williams, and you've got all of this talent all around you. It's you're telling me you've got this offensive genius head coach that's just wins everywhere he's been. Every hire he's made has been a home run hire, and you're telling me you score 3 points against Oklahoma? I don't know. I don't know, man. It just something doesn't feel right in Tuscaloosa.
The vibes are not immaculate over there.
No.
The fan base has you would think that Alabama's winless, just looking at some of the comments online, and not just on Saturday night after they lost, but on Sunday,
they're still
Sunday night, they're still Auburn's going to roll us.
Yeah.
And I don't want Auburn
right.
fans to think that. I hope they're right. I don't want our fans to take it for granted.
No, I don't think Auburn's going to roll them.
Right.
I do like Auburn's chances to win, though. I think I am going to pick Auburn in this game. But which is
wild to think about from a few weeks ago.
Totally. And there are probably some people that want me to pick against Auburn, which if we get enough of that, I might do it. But the gist of I just think when you zoom out of this game, it would do a lot of good for Auburn. Obviously, if they win this, I think it would reignite the fan base. You get excited about a bowl game, all that stuff. Maybe it has a help in recruitment. We talked about that earlier. Maybe. I don't think it's as much as some people are thinking, but I mean, it would impact it for sure. But the negative impact it would have on Alabama, I don't think can be understated. If a quote unquote bad Auburn team, or in this case, if they win, it'd be a 500 team, a 6-6 team, went into Tuscaloosa and won. I think it would do a lot of good for Auburn, but it would do more bad for Alabama. And that's important.
Yeah. And I think the Auburn players understand that they have more to gain from a win than Alabama's players do. Because what's the thought process over there in Tuscaloosa? Oh, we're probably not going to make the playoff. The season's a disappointment right now. And It's easy to see how that team could mentally some of these guys could shut it down. Auburn, we have not seen any of these players shut it down. They have been battling all year despite the adversity. They've been battling all game. We've seen them late in games, down multiple scores, still hustling, trying to get in the end zone. Auburn has the fight. I haven't seen the fight from Alabama. And it's entirely possible that Auburn Auburn wants it enough where they can go in and get the upset over Alabama.
Yeah.
That line still feels way too high, though.
Wonder if it moves. We'll see. Auburn caught a lot of attention this past week, and obviously Alabama did too, for both very different reasons. I'm curious to see if that line moves at all. So
I think it will.
But I mean, it might get down to 9.5. I can't see it getting much more than that, but I do feel like 9.5 is.
I feel like 1.5 is the most you're going to see. Like it'll probably still be, because it's 11.5 now, it'll probably still be 10. I don't see it getting down into single digits, but I do think it'll move in Auburn's favor between now and Saturday.
Yeah, you're probably right. Lindsay Crosby, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. You can find all of my Auburn baseball stuff, thebarnauburn.com. I'm about to drop some great fall camp stats from the offense, statistics I got from a source. And you can find all the Atlanta Braves coverage at bravestoday.com and the Braves Today podcast, by the way.
Yeah. Go sign up at thebarnauburn.com. First month is still $1. I don't think they're doing that deal for too much longer. So do that. You'll get Lindsay's baseball stuff, as well as early signing day, as well as transfer portal stuff, as well as coaching carousel, however Auburn is impacted by that. So all of that will be at thebarnauburn.com. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.